Hey esteemed, welcome to another video of banking awareness. In this video, we will be discussing about types of check. I have already uploaded history of banking and types of bank accounts. If you haven't watched it, please go and watch it. I'll link it in the I button. So if you want, I'll also give the link of this PDF in the description. If you want, you can make use of this. Before getting into the video, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure that you subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. So now let's start discussing. So first, what is a check? A check is a negotiable instrument that contains an order to the bank signed by a drawer to pay a certain sum of money to a specified person. As per the Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, a check is a bill of exchange drawn on a specified banker and not expressed to be payable otherwise on a demand. So, a check is a negotiable instrument that contains an order to the banker saying that to pay a certain sum of money to a specified person. So, the check is being drawn by a drawer. So, the person who writes the check is said to be a drawer. The specified person whose name is being mentioned in the check is called as a payee. According to the Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, check is a bill of exchange and that has been drawn on a specified banker. So, the check will contain a specified banker's names like ICICI, SBI, and it is not liable to be paid unless otherwise on a demand. So, now we will be discussing about the check related terms. So, drawer, as we already discussed, the person who writes the check is called as a drawer. The person who issues the check or holds the account with the bank is called as a drawer. Drawee, the person who is directed to make payment against the check. So, in this case, the drawee is the bank. Payee, a person whose name is mentioned in the check or to whom the drawee makes the payment. So, payee is the person whose name has been mentioned in the check. In other words, you can also say drawee makes payment to the payee. What happens in some cases, the drawer draws a check in favor of himself. In this case, the drawer becomes the payee as well. So, the validity of the check is for 3 months from the date of issue. So, previously the validity of the check was for 6 months. Now, the validity of the check is for 3 months. So, MICR. The full form of this is Magnetic Ink Character Recognition Code. Is a character recognition technology used mainly by banks to ease the processing and clearing of checks. So, this technology is being used by the bank to ease the processing and clearing of the check. This code is printed at the bottom of the check and it includes the document type indicators like bank code, bank account number, check amount, and a control indicator. So, this code has been printed in the bottom of the check and it contains the following informations. MICR is a 9-digit code that uniquely identifies a bank and a branch participating in the electronic clearing system. So, this is a 9-digit code that uniquely identifies the bank and the bank branch which is participating in the electronic clearing system. Now we will discuss about the types of check. So first is order check. Order check is a type of check that cannot be endorsed, which means that order check cannot be transferred. It can be only paid to the payee whose name is being mentioned in the check. So the person whose name is mentioned in the check can only get the payment. And this is a check in which the printed word bearer on the check is cancelled. So, cancelling the word bearer on the check automatically makes the check an order check. An order check can be paid to the named payee across the bank's account if so presented. So, on presenting the check, it can be honored over the counter. And the identification must be insisted by the banker when encashing the order check for the presenter. So, while encashing the check, it is the duty of the banker to ask the person to whom the bank is paying, that is the payee, to prove his identification for encashing the check. The ID number and the named payee signature will be asked for the on the back of the check. So the person, while encashing the payee, while encashing the check, he will be asked to write his ID number and put her signature on the back face of the check. So now we will discuss about the open check or bearer check. This type of check is risky in nature. When the word bearer on the check is not crossed or cancelled, the check is called as a bearer check. So when the word bearer in the check is not crossed or cancelled, it becomes a bearer check. So this is a risky kind of a check because any person who possesses the check can encash it. Open check bearer checks are payable to person specified in the instrument or any person who possesses it. So this is why it is said to be a risky kind of a check. So even if we lose the check, the payee loses the check, the person who finds it can easily encash it. So because of this reason, it is said to be a risky kind of a check. So now we will discuss about the blank check. A check on which the drawer puts his signature and leaves all the columns blank is called as a blank check. So in a blank check, the drawer only puts his signature and leaves all the other determinations to be filled up by the payee. So this is called as a blank check. More generally, blank checks are presented in a situation when both the parties have a high level of confidence in between them. So when the parties have a high level of trust, they offer a blank check. Counter check. Blank check was also commonly used as a synonym for counter check. It was fairly common for banks, especially in small towns, to issue checks to the customers which were not personalized other than the name of the bank. So initially, blank checks were also known as a counter check. So it is common in the small towns where the customers will be issued with only the bank's name. So the check will contain only the bank's name and all the other things has to be filled up by the customer. So businesses would have pads of counter check which did not even have the banks specified on them. The customer had to not only fill in the value of the check, the date, the signature, but also to designate the bank account on which the funds were to be drawn. So businesses also have a patch of counter check in which even the bank's name will not be specified on them. The customer, along with the value, date and their signature, they have to also mention the bank from which the funds were to be drawn. So now we will discuss about the post-dated check. Post-dated checks are the checks which contain a future date. So if a check bears a date later than the date of issue, it is termed as a post-dated check. Any check or a draft that has a future date written upon it by the user. So these kind of checks are known to be post-dated check. The amount of the check will not be drawn from the account until the date written on the check. So say for example, on July 4th, I issue a check, but the date that has been mentioned is 28th July. So the check cannot be encashed between 14th to 28th July. It can be encashed only after 28th July. So now we will discuss about the open check. A check that is not crossed check, the person whose name appears on the check can write the name of another person on it and the money will be paid to them. So open check is a check which can be easily negotiated to another person. So the person whose name appears on the check, he can easily transfer the check to another party. An open check is a check that is not crossed on the left corner and payable at the drawee bank on the presentation of the check. So a open check is a check that is not being crossed on the left corner and it will be payable at the drawee bank on presentation of the check. So the word open should not be strike off and the person issuing the check signs on the reverse of the check also before giving it to another person. Otherwise, the banker may refuse payment. So open check should, the word open, in an open check, the word open should not be striked off. And before endorsing it to another person, the person who is issuing the check to another party should sign in the back face of the check. In case if he fails to sign, then the banker will not honor the check. The latter can collect the money from any bank branch of the bank nowadays depending on the bank. She or he should also sign on the backside of the check while receiving the amount, even if it has been endorsed or even if they are encashing it. The payee should sign in the reverse of the check. So now we will discuss about the gift check. Gift check is a check foisted in decorative forms issued for a small extra charge by the bank for use by the customer who wish to give presents of money on special occasions. So gift checks are the decorative form of checks which are issued to the customers on paying some extra charges to the banker, and these checks can be used by the customer who wishes to give presents on special occasions. Gift checks may be purchased in unlimited number from every branch of the X bank. So you can purchase n number of gift checks. So we have birthday gift checks, wedding gift checks, honor gift checks, EASI smart gift checks. So we have various kinds of gift checks. So now we will be discussing about the outstanding check. A check which has been written and therefore has been entered into the company's ledger but which has not been presented for payment and so has not been debited from the company's bank account. So outstanding check is a check which has been issued to the payee but the payee has not yet presented it for payment in the bank. So these kind of check is said to be a outstanding check. So now we will discuss about the account payee check. A bearer check becomes an account payee check by writing account payee and crossing it twice with parallel lines on the left hand side top corner. So a bearer check, as we already discussed, bearer check is a check. The possessor of the check can encash it. So such a check becomes an account payee check by merely writing account payee or crossing it twice in the left hand side top corner of the check. It is considered as the safest type of the check and it is also known as a crossed check. So it is said to be the safest kind of check because a bearer check is automatically transferred into a account payee check. Say for example, if I lose a check and a person finds it and he tries to encash it, what happens since the check has been crossed? What happens? The banker directly pays the amount into my bank account. So it is said to be a safest kind of check. So now we will discuss about the crossed check. A crossed check is one which has two short parallel lines, as we already discussed, marked across the face in the left hand side top corner. So a check which carries two parallel transverse lines across the face of the check with or without the word INCO is said to be crossed. The advantages of crossing it is that it reduces the danger of unauthorized person getting possession of the check and cashing it. A crossed check can only be cashed through a bank of which the payee of the check is a customer. So a crossed check will only be paid into the payee's bank account. It cannot be encashed over the counter. So it is one of the safest kind of check, and the advantages of this is that it reduces the danger of unauthorized person getting advantage over the check. So now we will discuss about the banker's check. The banker's check is an instrument issued by the banker on behalf of a customer containing an order to pay a certain sum to a specified person within the city. So banker's check is an instrument issued by the bank on behalf of the customer containing an order to pay a specified person who resides within the city. All banker's check are pre-printed with not negotiable. So all the banker's check are pre-printed and no changes can be made. The validity period of the banker's check is 3 months. However, it can be revalidated subject to some legal formalities. So before 2012, the validity of the banker's check was 6 months. Now the validity of the banker's check is only 3 months. However, you can revalidate it, but it is subject to some long legal formalities. So now we will discuss about the bearer's check. A check which is payable to a person whosoever bears is called as a bearer check. So a person who possesses it can easily encash it. And this type of check is called as a bearer check. So a check which is payable to the person whosoever bears is called as a bearer check. A check can be paid in cash to the bearer or made payable to the person whose name is specified. For example, Bujishekar or bearer. So the check can be paid in cash to the bearer, the person who holds the check, or to the person whose name is being specified in the check. This check is payable by the dry bank over the counter to the bearer or the presenter of the check. So these kind of checks are payable over the counter. So by presenting the check, you will get the cash just over the counter. A bearer check can be negotiated or passed to another person by mere delivery. So you can easily negotiate a bearer check by just giving it to him. You just pass on the check. You just negotiate it. So now we will discuss about a stale check. Check presented at the paying bank after a certain period of its payment date. So a check which is being presented for payment after 6 months is said to be a stale check. A stale check is not an invalid check, but it may be deemed an irregular bill of exchange. A bank may refuse to honor it unless its drawer reconfirms its payment either by inserting a new payment date or by issuing a new check. Also, it is called as a stale dated check. So this is why it is said to be a irregular bill of exchange but not a invalid check. So a stale check is not an invalid check, but it is deemed to be a irregular bill of exchange because the banker may refuse to honor it unless and until the drawer of the check reconfirms its payment by either inserting a new date or by issuing a new check. In this case, the banker may honor the check. So now we will discuss about the self-checks. A self-check is written by the account holder as pay self to receive the money in physical form from the branch where he holds his account. It comes under bearer check where instead of writing the name, the account holder writes self to receive the money physically from the branch where he holds the account. So as we already discussed, what happens in some cases, the drawer of the check may write a check in favor of himself. So in this case, the drawer becomes the payee as well. So this is said to be a stale check. So now we will discuss about the mutilated check. If a check is torn into 2 or more pieces, such a check is said to be a mutilated check. So a damaged check is said to be a mutilated check. If it is presented for payment, such a check, banker will not make payment against such a check without getting confirmations from the drawer. So a mutilated check will not be honored by the banker unless and until he gets a confirmation from the drawer. In case if a check is torn at the corners and no material fact is erased or cancelled, the banker may make payment against such a check. So say if the check has been torn in the end and no damage is made to the material facts for the amount that has been mentioned in figures and it has been mentioned in words, and the signature of the drawer has not been caused any damage, in this case the banker may honor the check. So now we will discuss about the traveler's check. It is an instrument issued by the bank for remittance of money from one place to another. So while traveling, it is not safe to carry huge sum of money, right? In this case, the customer can carry traveler's check, and by presenting this in any of the bank branches, the customer can easily encash it. Traveler's checks are accepted almost everywhere and are available in many denominations. And traveler's check are also pre-printed check and it is available in many denominations. So the customer can carry traveler's check wherever he goes and he can easily encash it from any of the bank branches as it is accepted almost everywhere. Now we will discuss about the important details that should be presented on the check. A check should be dated. It can contain the present date or the future date, but a check should be dated. Should mention the amount of money in figures and words. To avoid any misunderstanding, the drawer of the check should mention the money in figures and words, and this should match. Okay, a check must be signed by the person issuing the check, so the drawer must make sure that he puts his signature on the check. A check must be drawn upon a specified bank drawee, so a check should be drawn on a specified bank like ICICI, SBI, as we already discussed. A check must have the name of the recipient of the check, so the name of the payee should be mentioned in the check. The recipient of the check is also known as payee, as we already discussed. So that's it. We have come to the end. So I hope you like this video. If you like this video, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, give this video a thumbs up, and also share this video with your friends. So I'll meet you in my next video. Till then, bye. It's me, Harini, signing off.